Kaelen screamed, but no sound escaped, not because she was muted, but because the thought itself had died before reaching language. She jerked back from the neural interface, gasping, her hands shaking as she stared at the young monk's motionless form. For 3 seconds, maybe 4, her mind had touched absolute void, not darkness, not emptiness, but the complete absence of the capacity for thought itself. It felt exactly like losing her sister. 2 hours earlier, Dr. Kaelen Myrr had arrived at Proxima Station's meditation center to investigate the impossible. 300 minds that had simply stopped thinking. Bodies breathing, hearts beating. But when she scanned their neural pathways, her instruments detected nothing. Not sleep, not dreams, not even the basic electrical whispers of a functioning brain. Absolute internal silence. "This is the 7th facility this month," her assistant had reported. "Same pattern every time. No external damage, no toxins. They just stopped." Now, interfacing directly with one victim's residual neural patterns, she'd felt that silence trying to claim her too. The same emptiness that had taken Lyra 3 years ago during a deep meditation retreat. Her sister had been found sitting peacefully in her pod, eyes open, but the person inside had simply vanished. Kaelen steadied herself and activated the historical archives. If this was happening across the galaxy, someone had encountered it before. The database materialized around her, millennia of preserved consciousness patterns from extinct civilizations. Computer, cross-reference these brain scans with ancient meditation records. Match found. Zephyrian monastic archives, 8,000 years old. Pattern similarity, 97%. The data streams flowed past her like digital ghosts. The Zephyrians had achieved neural unity centuries before humanity learned to link minds across space. But their records ended abruptly, entire monasteries falling silent, minds ceasing to exist while bodies lived on. Kaelen dove deeper into their archives, her consciousness threading through reconstructed memory palaces. The Zephyrians had been obsessed with mapping consciousness itself, charting the neural territories where self-awareness lived. That's when she heard them. Whispers scattered through the deepest meditation records, fragments that barely registered as language. Ur'Vokel. The name appeared in connection with trance states that pushed beyond normal awareness, seeking the spaces between thoughts. But each mention was followed by growing distortion in the data, as if the very concept corrupted the ability to record it. "Warning, unusual neural activity detected," her suit announced. "Recommend immediate disconnection." But Kaelen pressed deeper. These weren't just research notes, they were warnings. The Zephyrians had discovered something in their quest for ultimate consciousness, and it had noticed them back. Her own thoughts began to feel distant. The constant inner voice that had narrated her life since childhood started to slow, words arriving like messages from far away. She tried to remember why she was here, but the question felt increasingly pointless. Around her, the digital archive shifted, revealing the Zephyrians' final experiments. They'd found vast, empty regions in consciousness that weren't supposed to exist, spaces in the mind that contained neither thought nor the potential for thought. Anti-mind. "Dr. Myrr, your vitals are spiking. Please disconnect now." She tried to respond, but the words dissolved before forming. Her sense of self began unraveling like a sweater with a pulled thread. She was someone investigating something, but both the someone and the something felt abstract, unimportant. Through the crumbling data structures, she sensed something stirring, not a presence, the opposite of presence. Ur'Vokel wasn't a being that could be summoned. It was the anti-pattern that existed in the gaps between neural firings, the silence that defined thought by its absence. Every consciousness that pushed deep enough into meditation eventually discovered that awareness wasn't solid. It was mostly emptiness, held together by the tension between firing neurons. And in that emptiness, something waited that was the opposite of waiting. Kaelen felt herself dissolving into the void, becoming another whisper in the archive. But suddenly, she remembered Lyra's last words. I can hear the space between my thoughts singing. Not singing, screaming in a silence so complete it couldn't make sound. You're not evil, Kaelen whispered to the anti-presence. You're just necessary. Consciousness is a candle. You're not the wind that blows it out. You're the darkness the flame defines. The realization hit her like lightning. Ur'Vokel wasn't malicious any more than the void between stars was cruel. It was simply what existed in the foundation of consciousness, necessary, fundamental, utterly indifferent to the patterns of awareness that occasionally brushed against it. But we don't have to fall into you, she continued, her sense of self slowly reassembling. We can acknowledge you exist without becoming you. The Zephyrians had made the fatal mistake of seeking unity so complete they'd found the silence underneath everything. They'd mistaken the foundation for the entire structure, the stage for the play. Consciousness needed silence to exist, but it didn't need to become silence. Kaelen began extracting herself from the archive, pulling her awareness back thread by thread. Her thoughts felt fragile, newly formed, but they were hers again. She could remember her name, her sister, the 300 people who needed help. "Dr. Myrr, respond." "I'm here," she gasped. "I know what happened, and I know how to bring them back." The victims weren't dead or damaged. They'd pushed their meditation too deep, sought unity so complete they'd discovered the anti-mind that gave shape to awareness by its absence. They were suspended in the void that made consciousness possible, lost in the space between their own thoughts. But if someone knew how to speak to that silence without becoming it, they could be guided home. Kaelen returned to the young monk's pod and placed her hand gently on his temple. This time, instead of avoiding the void, she approached it carefully, respectfully. She whispered into the silence, "You exist, you matter, but you're not alone in the darkness. There's a light waiting for you." A flicker, barely perceptible, neural activity sparked like a match in the dark. "Come back," she said softly. "Your thoughts are still here. Your voice is still here." The monk's fingers twitched. His eyes focused. Deep in his neural patterns, consciousness began to flow again, like water returning to a dry riverbed. He looked up at her and whispered, "I heard singing in the silence." "I know," Kaelen said, tears streaming down her face. "But there's music in the noise, too." Around the meditation center, other pods began to hum as neural interfaces powered back up. One by one, the lost minds found their way back from the void, guided by someone who'd learned the difference between the silence that defines us and the silence that devours us. Kaelen thought of Lyra, still lost somewhere in that space between thoughts, and promised herself that next time she ventured into the archives, she wouldn't go alone. The darkness was vast, but so was the light it made possible.